Welcome to another episode of Beyond Four Walls, the podcast where we delve into the fascinating world of property, people and the passions that drive them. I'm your host, Jodie Fraser, and today I'm thrilled to introduce today's guest, Sandeep Singh, a remarkable individual whose career and life experiences are as diverse as they are inspiring. Sandeep is a seasoned professional in the property industry with nearly 2 decades of experience under his belt. He's made a name for himself as a trusted advisor to landlords, developers, investors, and property management companies, both across residential and mixed-use sectors. Combining technical expertise with strategic insight, Sandeep is dedicated to helping his clients see the bigger picture, always ensuring that customer is king. Beyond his professional achievements, Sandeep has lived an intriguing life. He spent 6 years as a doorman in Camden Town while juggling his role as a property manager, gathering a collection of captivating stories and even rubbing shoulders with a few celebrities along the way. Sandeep is also a devoted family man, married for 9.5 years and the proud father of 2 beautiful children. And though he recently faced the heartbreaking loss of his beloved American Akita Shearer, Sandeep continues to find strength in his family and faith. An initiated Sikh and a trustee for the charity Everything 13, Sandeep adheres to a strict yet fulfilling way of life, demonstrating the commitment to both personal and community values. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jodie. Honoured to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
No worries at all. So can you just start by sharing your journey that led you to your role today?
Geez, I'll try and be quick. I went to the University of Harvard to do computing and multimedia. Was working in a part-time sales job at the time, and that's where I thought I was going to kind of prosper. Things didn't work out, but I managed to graduate in computing and multimedia. Then within about a couple of weeks, a company called me up and said, "Hey, do you fancy being a property manager?" It's like property management. Sounds quite cool. Real estate. My dad got more excited than I, to be perfectly honest with you. I thought, yeah, why not? Read the job description, and honestly, I had no clue what this role was about. I had no idea about service charge, leases, anything like that. But I went to the interview. I thought, I need a job. Let's see where it takes me. And yeah, the rest is history. I joined a company at the time called Erinaceous Group. They're now known as RMG, but they were initially market leaders at the time, Erinaceous Group, and I was in a team of really senior leaders called Gross Fine, and we managed quite a lot of bespoke property within central London. So it was a really good opportunity for me to understand the role and learn.
Amazing. The company that you've founded now, what made you want to do
Oh
that?
wow!
Is it the
So yeah,
property people?
first sort of 8 to 10 years within block management, I worked at companies such as Erinaceous, HML Group, and then prestigious sort of chartered surveyors like Clutton's, who had offered block management services. So I got a bit
Mhm.
of exposure to mixed use property and sort of private leasehold. And then I joined a company called Mainstay Residential, where I got my exposure to sort of new builds and started to get a lot more involved with sort of pre-live and sort of working quite closely with some of the big developers within London. And I started to enjoy that quite a lot because I went into that role thinking I know it all.
Of
Um,
course.
I'm very good at customer service. I know how to do property management. And then the new build world was just like, what? I was just like, wow, okay. I don't actually know it all. So I was learning on the role, but there was a lot of transferable skills. It's still leasehold and it's still private, and some social housing, etc., mixed use, retail, commercial. But I had to get a bit more involved in advising and supporting some of the landlords, and I really enjoyed that. And then a lot of my
Mm,
focus in the last 8 to 10 years has been working on sort of brand new developments. Um, all the way to where they're transferred to RMCs as well, etc., and working quite closely to them. So I think it worked out really well. And then when I made a decision to leave my last role, I was umming and ahhing about what do I do after doing about 17 or 18 years for managing agents. I thought, okay, I don't think I want to do this now. I need to do something else. Spoke to sort of mentors, life and career mentors, and yeah, and that's how the Property People was born.
amazing. Well, maybe you can tell me a little bit more about what you do in terms of the property people. But in the meantime, what do you think are the biggest challenges you faced in the your 20-year career?
Good question. I think it was more so early days. I felt a little bit looked down at, whether it was just because of my age. I got into the industry at 21-ish, or maybe even the way I looked. I was working for a few traditional companies, should we say? So maybe there's a bit of stereotype or stuff. Well, I don't really know, but I felt like I had to personally prove myself a bit more than maybe other people did. I don't know how true it is, but I think it was just a feeling. You know, when you just get that feeling that you have to kind of
Yeah.
put a bit more into it. But I think that's what brought the best out of me. I was always trying 10, 15% harder than everyone else in the room. And it just, I was able to learn quicker. I was able to deliver at a faster pace. I was quite competitive as well. Maybe that was from the sales background. But yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges was the early days. And naturally, just like anyone else that's worked in industry, when you're managing in residential leasehold in particular, it's very emotive. So whether
Yeah.
it's changing legislation, managing people's money, it's emotive because buying a flat or a house is probably one of the biggest investment for somebody. It's someone's home or it's their sort of return on investment there for the future, right? So it's
Yeah.
going to be a very emotive subject. So I think there's been so many challenges over the last 18 to 20 years.
If you're comfortable doing so, of course, you say that you think that people weren't as receptive to you potentially because of the way you looked. Is that around, your religion or anything like that? Is that something you're happy to share?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's a combination, really. I think I look different. So I obviously used to stand out a lot more in the crowd, maybe when I first got into the sector. But I don't even know if I'm allowed to say this, but I feel like the sector was, when I first joined the sector, I felt like it was tailored to white man over the age of 50.
Yeah.
So it's not even just turban wearing, hairy face sort of thing. There wasn't even many like females around me, even though my
Mm.
first line manager was a female, but I still felt like it was me and her, and then there was just a load of old men.
Well,
And
absolutely. From my point of view as well,
yeah,
it's very male. It was very male dominated 18 years
yeah.
ago when I started.
And then I don't think there was any racism as such, but I think it's naturally quite easy for people to just judge someone based on what they
Mm.
see, first impressions, right?
Hmm.
So whether it was clients, whether it was leaseholders and customers, it was that. And I think a combination of that with some of my own securities, like some people might say, "Oh, right, he's a big lad," but I was even bigger. I was severely overweight 18 years ago. So I think
Hmm.
a combination of my own securities, made me feel this way.
Well, thank you for sharing that because I think it's important. I talk a lot about women in the industry and how we have to struggle and stuff, and I think it's important to see, a different view, and it all kind of comes back from, that middle-aged white man situation. And I think I was at a conference quite a while ago, and there was, when you is it Slido when you can put questions
Oh
up
yeah.
on the screen, and there was a comment that was put up about basically where are all the women? It's all been middle-aged white men. Nothing against middle-aged white men, of course. 'Cause I've had, it's not about that's not what I'm talking about, but definitely something that, it's nice to see, the industry being a little bit different these days, certainly.
But the good thing is though, like it was in that environment where I met my mentor as well.
Hmm.
Like within block management. Like it was at
Yeah.
when I was working at Clutton's, for example, there was an ex-employee from Clutton's called Janie Strange, who was
Hmm.
also one of the founders of the IRPM back in the day, one of
Oh,
the
okay.
co-founders. So she wasn't the only founder, but she was one of a few. And she was just doing 1 day a week as a consultant as she was nearing retirement. And this is my interpretation of the situation. So she didn't do it in these words, but just one day she just came over to me and just kind of, this is me sort of 5 to 6 years into block management. She went, "You're not very good at your job, are you, Sonny?" Sonny's my nickname, by the way. Who the hell's this? Telling me that I'm not very
Yeah.
good. I actually just won some customer service awards at HML
Yeah.
6 months ago. Like, come on. And she's like, however, every Wednesday afternoon, I've got some time. I'm happy to mentor you and support you. And now I could have been that guy that just thinks, what? And just got all defensive. But there was something
Mm.
about her aura and the way she said it and the tone, which had sort of a combination of sort of teacher vibes,
Okay.
wanting to do what's good for me. And the rest is history. I met her 16 odd years ago, and I still meet her for a coffee 2 or 3 times a year. And yeah, she's amazing.
Brilliant. I mean, did you take offense when she said that? Apart from being
I
I'm an
think my ego
award-winning
did.
property
I think
manager.
I
Yeah.
think my ego was just like, who you? Like, I didn't know who she was as well, but I shouldn't really, it doesn't matter who says it, right? Like, just
Mm.
generally speaking, I just thought, like, what? you know. But I think I even remember the conversation actually. It's really interesting because I think we're probably going to talk about how the industry's kind of evolved over the years. But
Mm,
I think what it was is she was sitting in the row ahead of me and I was talking to a tenant on the phone. So this individual was an AST contract and was subletting the flat legally. And they were asking me a few questions. I can't remember why. And I think I might have said something along the lines of, I'm really sorry, but you're just a tenant.
right.
And it was the just a tenant bit, I think, I quote, that stuck out.
Yeah.
And now for somebody that thinks they're the best at customer service, 6 years experience, I won an award 6 months ago, you wouldn't think that when you're using terminology as such, but that was just the way I'd been trained in that traditional sort of environment.
Mm,
And it was her that actually said to me that, you can't say just a tenant. I appreciate that maybe there's certain information that you can't provide if somebody is subletting the property, but you need to be mindful of how you're portraying this and how you're saying certain words. You can't say just a tenant. And
mm.
that's where, I just remember that conversation and it was a bit of a game changer for me.
Sometimes like just that one word, isn't it? That just because it's still, as you say, it's still somebody's home. It's still, where they are investing their money because,
Yeah,
it might not come to you as the as a managing agent, but you are investing in your home and what makes you feel safe and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's I suppose it's not that you did it on purpose, but it's good that you were, I guess, pulled up on it
yeah,
and you
yeah.
learned from it. You didn't take offense to that and you learned from it and you moved on and I think that that just shows, clearly what a great person you are. Because
Thanks.
because you took it on board and you just didn't do the, oh well, I'll do what I want and I'll say what I want and just turn into the defensive mode. And, I think that's really great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think thanks to her for pulling me up on it because she could have
Mm.
just chosen to ignore it as well.
Yeah, definitely. But on the flip side of things, then, can you tell me about a particularly rewarding experience that you've had when you've helped a client or just something personal?
There's been so many in different types of scenarios. Let me think. I think a recent one, I'd say recent, it was a couple of years ago, and I can't go into too much detail but it was a foreign developer that was
Hmm.
building and they'd purchased some land in London and it was meant to be very high-end living. And they were making a lot of rookie mistakes. And if
Hmm.
people that know me know I can't keep my mouth shut and I have to say something and I have to kind of correct someone, but in a respectful way. And I think I'd only known this client for about 10 days or so. But in their actions and what I had seen within the first couple of weeks, I just knew there was going to be so many issues upon first completion.
Hmm.
Whether it was like the estate management strategy, they were looking to recruit 60 to 65 members of staff to work within that building alone.
Hmm.
Um, and you can imagine what that was going to do to the service charge and a pound per square foot and trying to
Yeah.
sell these flats. So I just had to bite the bullet and just open my mouth, but in a very calm, respectful way, just have an informal conversation with the client lead because I was able to have access to them and just very openly shared my concerns, which turned
Hmm.
into a brainstorming session with different departments within their team who had flown into London. And then me and a few personnel from one of my previous employers sat down and we didn't just come up with this is a problem, this is a problem, that's a problem. For every problem, we tried our best to come up with at least one or two solutions. Um, and I think they really appreciated that
Mm.
because it's so easy to critique anything in life, but it's always good to kind of critique and then try and come up with an alternative solution to make it right and still achieve what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And also that they were receptive to it.
Yeah, yeah. Not
Because
everybody, but
well,
yeah,
I'm sure, but I've certainly worked with developers in the past where they just want to sell the flats. They don't care what the service charge is going to be.
yeah.
As long as it is low enough to sell, and then, you can move on.
Yeah,
It's up to the managing agent then to put the prices up. But actually, if it had been set at a reasonable price in the first place, there wouldn't be the 82% increase that, some things have been reported on and that's
exactly.
that sort of thing. So yeah, but
Yeah,
it's great actually that they were receptive to your ideas and
they
they at
were.
least
Yeah.
listened.
And then a couple of months ago, actually, with the property people, I was lucky to get introduced to a group of leaseholders who had formed an RTM, and
Hmm.
this block of flats in prime central London. It's about 100 odd apartments. They're all worth 2, 3 million pounds each, and they've just formed an RTM, so they wanted to change agents, and they gave me strict instruction. We want you to go to 15 managing agents, and I said,
Wow.
15. I said, you want me to get 15 agents to compete against one another for this block? And they said, yeah, we want the best of the best. But I said, look, you can achieve this without going to 15 agents. So
Hmm.
what do you propose? And I said, let's go for 3 to 5. Let me
Hmm.
understand what exactly you want first from your managing agent in terms of scope of services, the type of personnel, demographic, where they're located, everything. You just lay it out so I can understand, and I'll come up with 2 or 3 agents for you. They still insisted on the number 15, and I have no idea where that came from, to be perfect. Only still, I don't. And cut long story short, I said I can't go to 15 agents and invite them to tender for this block. I said I've been agent side. You're wasting a lot of their time, and it's you. Let's focus on quality and not quantity. But they're still focused on 15. So opposed to wasting the 15 agents' time, I approached 15 agents and said, I'm not going to send you the PQQ. I'm not going to ask you to submit your tender right away. Can I just spend 20 to 25 minutes on a Teams call, get to know
Hmm.
how you run, make a few notes, and I'll put a presentation together on the 15 agents. And I was very open with them, and I told them I was approaching 15 of you. But
Hmm.
that way, at least I'm not wasting too much of your time. A lot of resource goes into it. You know yourself,
Yeah.
like you run
Yeah.
your own business. If you're pitching for a site, there's a lot of time and effort that goes into it because you naturally
Mm.
want to win it.
Of course.
So I don't want to do that to 15 businesses. And I think it was a really good success for me. I felt really good about it. And I think the 15 agents were then narrowed down to 6 who were formally invited. And the ones that didn't make it to that stage were still very like, no one actually said, Sandeep, oh, why the hell did we not get it? It was more like, oh, okay, fair enough. We really appreciate that all we had to do was invest 30 minutes into this
Mm.
at this stage, and we didn't have to go through such a lengthy process to get rejected. So that was really good.
They'll remember that then as well. So like when if you go to them to tender for something else,
Yeah.
they'll remember that you respected them and you respected their time. And like, as you said, I run my own business. For me to go out or for my colleague to go out, that's potentially a day out of the office or half a day out of the office to go and meet the client, see the site. We don't have business development managers that are
Mm.
dedicated to doing that job like some of the bigger companies. So I think it's great that you respected them enough ultimately to and also did what your client asked you to do all at the same time. So there's some good
Yeah, yeah,
skills
yeah.
there.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. When we came to the final 2, actually, we interviewed them and we went through the whole a bit more of a lengthy process. The client actually said to me, they said, we actually don't know. It's a toss of a coin between the two.
Hmm.
And it sounded like they were complaining that I had found 2 agents and both of them could do the job and they really were struggling. And I had a bit of a smirk on my face because I had to take it as a compliment that
Yeah,
they
of
were really
course.
happy with the final 2.
Yeah, definitely. So you approach with your consultancy, you talk about redefining excellence. You've just given a very good example ultimately. So what is your approach, your overall approach of redefining excellence in the industry through your
See,
consultancy?
I focus a lot on creating relationships. So it doesn't mean we have to be best friends and go for dinner together and invite us to children's birthday parties. But what I mean by relationships is just having honest and frank conversations, get to know one another. So I'm talking about clients now. Totally understand from their perspective, like what is it that they enjoy? What is it that's winding them up? Or what is the area that they're not getting from their existing service provider or whatever they're trying to achieve, and then trying to sort of get into the nitty gritty. Is it cost related? Is it contract related? And try and focus on doing like a gap analysis without
Hmm.
coming to the conclusion, sack them, or whatever it's very emotive, isn't it? So
Mm.
I've tried to understand and get into the nitty gritty. So redefining excellence for me is creating relationships and just trying to create an environment where people feel safe, whether it's
Yeah.
clients, customers, tenants, whoever it may be. And then that way, just kind of being the middle person that can actually say to a client, actually, your customers within your building actually want X, Y, Z, and then actually have what's the word? Um, I'm not, there's a word I'm looking for, but the autonomy to actually say
Mm.
to the customers within the buildings that actually your client is trying to achieve this, but this is how we need to get there, and this is what it
Yeah.
might cost, and just having frank conversations.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's managing those expectations as well, isn't it? Because I think there's a lot of like an agent will come a client, sorry, will come to us as an agent and say, "Oh, this we want all we want is great communication." And of course, we do our very best to give that communication, but what they mean by that is they want someone on hand 24/7.
Yeah,
Um, and so as you say, building that relationship and getting down to the nitty-gritty of what is it they actually want to achieve within their boundaries of their budget as well.
yeah,
Because they could probably have a 24/7 property manager if they wanted to pay for it. But that's generally not how block management companies work,
yeah.
unless it's very high end, obviously.
Yeah. There's
But yeah,
also
I think.
the bit because when I've worked agent side and there's so many people that are doing now what I used to do in some of my previous roles, and they
Mhm.
probably try to have similar conversations with leaseholders, for example, or individuals living within the building. And they will, but yeah, your client is the landlord, your client is the developer, your client is the freeholder. So there's always going to be an ounce of, can we trust this guy?
Mm,
Because they're not instructed by us.
yeah,
But when I'm impartial now, as a consultant, I feel people are a bit more trusting as well,
yeah,
which is quite good, whether it's landlords or whether it's the leaseholders. So it's yeah, it's quite a lot for me to give, I think, to the industry.
yeah, and I totally get that. I think when I've been appointed by a freeholder, that is the most difficult conversations when it comes to then dealing with the leaseholders and the people who live there, and because we've just been given to them, if you like, or we've been appointed without their knowledge, or as much as I always say, please, please tell them that
Hmm.
we know what you're doing. That is definitely one of the most difficult conversations that we have to have, or the most difficult meetings, because it's not their choice that we're there, and it does frustrate them. I completely get that. Yeah. So tell me about your experiences as a doorman. And has that influenced your perspective of property management in any way? Or because you did it alongside your property management job, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah. My younger brother was a doorman, interestingly, and he used to make a few quid. And I think one weekend, his boss basically said, "Oh, I need an extra pair of hands. Do you fancy it?"
Hmm.
I think it was New Year's Eve. It's double pay, etc. So I was like, "Yeah, why not?" I just got to wear a bit of black, and I was helping out as a marshal with a high vis vest on because I didn't have a license. And I
Mm.
really appreciated the money. And I thought, oh, wow, I could do with this. I wasn't married, didn't have children at the time. So my only other passion outside of work was just football, basically. I just thought, yeah, why not? I could do with this and a bit of extra money. So I got involved, got my license, and I ended up, it was very difficult to come out of it. But in the grand scheme of things, my job was to protect the customers, ensure the
Hmm.
landlord of the pub or the bar was compliant with the local authorities and the
Right.
licensing team. And this led to quite a bit of abuse. And in the grand scheme of things, if you think about it, it sounds very familiar, right?
It does, yeah.
So, you know,
We're all just a doorman at heart. That's what it is.
no, so Monday to Friday, I used to do my job as a property manager. I was MIRPM qualified, etc. And then Friday night, I used to finish sort of in North London, and I used to head to Camden Town for about 6:30 p.m. Have a
Hmm.
quick bite to eat and a cup of tea, and start at 7 p.m. straight on the doors, and then finish about
Right.
2 a.m.
Oof.
Spend half of Saturday, a little bit of gym, sleep, eat, and then start again 5, 6 o'clock on a Saturday. Finish Sunday morning at 2, 3 a.m. And then that was it. And I've done that for about 6 years.
I mean, are there any stories, interesting stories or experiences that you'd be happy to share? Or is it all
Uh,
like, what happens on the door stays on the door?
no, no, I stayed on the same door for 6 years.
Okay.
And it was a really, really famous pub in Camden Town that's still there. It's called the Hawley Arms, and it's
Okay.
mainly known for a lot of, I say celebs. It wasn't my crowd. I wasn't into the music, so I did not know who was coming in and out. And I see
Okay.
them now sometimes on television, like the guy on Bake Off, Great British Bake Off, one of the guys that hosts it. He used to be in and out of that pub every weekend, and I only clocked on that that was him about 2 years ago when I got into Bake Off. But I wasn't into that crowd. Amy Winehouse used to come. That was her regular joint, and that was where she
Oh,
was coming
wow.
in the house. I wasn't into the music. I had not heard a song. But one of the funniest was on one event. I was there on the door checking IDs and all of that, and this group of lads came, and I looked at them, and they were swaying a little bit. And we had a bit of a rule where we wouldn't allow people groups of 6 or 7 like gents like to come in one go, bar policy. So I said, look, respectfully, sorry, gents. you can't come into this pub. We don't allow groups of lads, etc., etc. And this one guy started effing and blinding at me. He was just going for it. So I just stood there very calm. I said, look, do you know who we are? Do you know who my mate is? And I was like, I looked at his mate, who was very quiet. He was not abusing me, for the record. I did
Hmm.
not know him. But then the more I looked at him, I was like, I kind of recognize this guy. Who is he? And I did, okay, whatever. Argued for about 10 minutes, completely shouted at me as if it was going to make the situation better. Respectfully said, look, I'm really sorry, but it's not going to happen, gents. Sent them to another venue. I always
Hmm.
try to come up with a solution, right? So if a group of lads couldn't get into the bar, I'd always say, I know a venue that would allow you to come in, because then they just want to have a drink or a pint. They
Yeah.
were adamant they wanted to come in. So anyway, 5 minutes later, a bus goes past the pub and I see a poster on the bus. You know how you see the big adverts for films, and it was a film called Twilight, and it was a guy called Robert Pattinson. I think Robert.
Okay.
I was like, oh, I remember him. And I said to my colleague James, who was on the door with me for 6, I was like, that's the guy that was just with his mates, and we just, oh, sugar. I didn't say sugar, but you know what I'm coming from. We just started to laugh, and we were like, oh my gosh. But yeah, bumped into so many of them. Cesc Fabregas used to play for Arsenal. I saved him from a parking ticket once, hilariously, because he parked
Okay.
outside. He came over, said thank you, and he rang one of my best mates up, who's an Arsenal fan, and wished him a happy birthday on the phone. So he was a
Nice.
gentleman. I saw one of the Mitchell brothers from EastEnders getting thrown into the back of a car in the boot because he was plastered. So yeah, so there's some good stories because it's good fun.
So you wouldn't go back to doing that now with a couple of kids and
No, no,
no, I don't think I could
I miss my
handle a
sleep. I
7 day
couldn't.
week.
No, I couldn't. Not even a 7 day week. I'm in bed by 10:30.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah. Well,
couldn't do
9 o'clock over here,
that. Yeah, I couldn't do it again. But there was a lot of transferable skills. Like even one block of flats, like in Mayfair, that I was managing in 2013, 14, 20 flats, and I remember a leaseholder who called at 3 o'clock on a Friday, and he just went, "There's a friggin' brothel in flat, blah blah blah. They've just moved in. I've seen punters coming in and out." And I think 60% of that block were Arabic families. And regardless of culture, I think most people would be offended by that in your block, basically.
Mm.
And it was all on one floor because it was a very unique building. And he was just like, what are you going to do about it? And I was actually getting ready to go for work in a couple of hours' time. So I was thinking, what can I do? And I just went, oh, spoke to my manager. I said, I'm going to call a security company. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a doorman to just go to the front door of this block of flats, sit there on the front desk, and all he's going to do is just check for ID for anyone
Hmm.
coming in and out. And at the time you were allowed to do this, if the address on the driver's license wasn't matching with the building, then we'd ask them to take a picture. And this is my slight security
Mm.
background, I think. And if anyone's a punter coming into the brothel, is probably not going to be interested in having their photo taken. And
Right.
the brothel packed up by Saturday afternoon.
Ah, right, there we go.
Yeah, they literally left the flat by the Saturday afternoon, so not even just under 24 hours, and those leaseholders were super happy.
Yeah, I bet.
Cost about
Gosh.
120 quid.
It's a bit of a strange one to put on your CV, isn't it? But still at the same time, it's a pretty it's a good thing to say that, oh, I sorted this out within 24 hours and it only cost £120. So
Yeah.
it's yeah, a pretty good one. But tell me how your faith influences your professional life and any sort of decision making around what you can and can't do, if you're comfortable to do so, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, I don't go to brothels. So
Oh no, no, that would but
from
and you're
brothels to
married.
religion.
So
Married or no married. No, no, but yeah. Um, it's a funny one because I think people that look at me assume I'm very religious because of my appearance, but I don't know, I think there's tens of thousands of like Sikhs out there that are better learned than myself, practice a lot better than I do. Whether they have turbans or don't have turbans, they still are
Mhm.
spiritually more in tune. But I try to learn. But I think there's a few principles that I think I try to implement in my life that resonate with me in the way I've always worked as a PM or as a people manager or as my own business now. Equalities, I think equality is quite a key principle and it's central in how I try to interact with everyone, regardless of like their background. So if you're a contractor, colleague, customer, a client, I always try my best to ensure that they're treated with respect and dignity. I
Mhm.
think even if you have disagreements, and then like anyone, I also get quite nervous and anxious, whether it's a podcast, panel talk, client meeting. but I've always found myself to be quite optimistic. And I don't know personally if that's come from my faith in Siki or being a Man United fan. I don't really know. I'm always thinking it's going to get better. And I think if I look into it, there's like a saying in our faith, which it's pronounced Jodie. And basically, a lot of people say it means like a positive attitude or high spirits. But someone described it to me as like a state of mind as well, where you
Nice.
are always trying to accept whatever is thrown at you
Hmm.
as God's will, or if you don't believe in God, just whatever the universe's will is
Hmm.
for you, and just try and take it on the chin and see how you can improve and deal with the situation, opposed to reflecting on what you could have done yesterday. And I think ethical decision making as well. I
Yeah.
always feel like Masiki provides me with like a model framework, shall I say? So it reflects. I try to reflect what aligns with like righteousness, for example.
Hmm.
So if my guru, wife, mum was here or aware of the situation I'm in, would they be happy with the actions that I'm taking, or the advice
Right.
that I'm giving, or the impact that my advice can be? So I think those are stuff that, yeah, they influence my professional life, and definitely decision making.
Bringing in your faith and being a father to your children, and how does that all connect alongside your professional life as well? I mean, how do you bring your children up with, the same respect and dignity and everything, and treat them with respect and dignity as well?
I'm thinking that literally treat them with respect and dignity and actions. Like proof's always in the pudding, right? And that
Yeah.
isn't a quote from my textures. It's just one of them stuff. Proof's always going to be in the pudding. So my actions are what my family are going to see. So if I act a certain way or I make certain decisions and my son as he's growing or my daughter see how daddy's earning money or daddy's talking to people, they're going to think that's the norm. So for me,
Yeah.
it's proofs in the pudding. But obviously, like my wife and I, and my mother as well, we all live together. We do our prayers. We have a certain kind of routine for mornings and evenings, and we've just moved house, so I get a lot more time for the school run in the morning with my son. So we
Hmm.
get 45 minutes together in the car where we do a little bit of reading, we do a little bit of singing, like spiritual sort of songs, and then
Oh,
we do
nice.
some breakfast as well within the 45 minutes. And I remember actually saying to my son, that, do you think we should just kind of look at the local school? Because it's got a really good rep. And he said, but then that only means we're going to spend 5 minutes in the car, Dad. And I was like, oh, okay, you like spending time with me, don't you?
Oh,
So it's quite nice. And I really like the school. He goes to a Catholic school, so he's the only Sikh turban wearing boy in that whole
okay.
school. And he goes to a Catholic school, and I was a bit nervous about it, but I heard some really good stories. But I love the
Mm,
school to bits.
yeah.
Everything they say and teach, I align with so
Hmm.
far, and it's good because I actually went to a Sikh school for 3 years in high school, funny enough, and I actually
Right.
regret going there, to be perfectly honest with you, because I feel like it's not a true representation of society. Then I
Mm,
ended up having Sikh mates in college. Most of my friends
right.
were Sikh when I went to university. So the non-Sikh mates that I had made kind of came after I started to work, And it's
Yeah.
like, that's not a true reflection of the society we're living in.
No, and you're absolutely right, and especially in cities like certainly sort of London, Bristol, where I live, it's incredibly, multicultural. And but like you, I grew up in a very predominantly white school. All of my friends were white, but as you say, as you grow up and you go to uni and you meet other people and you work and you meet some such incredible people along the way who you didn't have those relationships with growing up, and didn't understand. I remember wanting to do religious education when I was in secondary school and high school, and only three students had chosen it for their GCSE, so I couldn't do it. But I was so interested because I'm interested in people,
Yeah.
and I want to learn about people all of the time. And I think that's why I'm so interested in sort of psychology and talking to people like this on my podcast and stuff, because I just find everything so interesting. But yeah, I mean, it sounds great. It sounds like you say about doing like prayers and your routine and stuff at home. It teaches the kids discipline as well, though, doesn't it? Because you have to follow rules when you're at school and in the workplace and that sort of thing. And I think it shows that you can do it in a very respectful manner as well. You don't have to see discipline as a bad thing, or authority as a bad thing, because clearly the way that you're teaching your children is to do everything very respectfully.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't get me wrong, it's not all kind of gravy in the house. Like we do obviously have bad days and some school runs are a bit more painful, doesn't want to get
Well,
out
of
of bed,
course,
or he
they're
misses
kids.
prayer, or it just some things don't go to plan, or you come back from a long day and you get so frustrated. But
Oh,
on
absolutely. Yeah.
reflection, I try to reflect and I try not to do the same thing again. Or
Mm.
my wife will say to me that, "Did you know you did this today?" And she'll try and make me aware, and I need that.
Yeah, and yeah, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's certainly not all rainbows and roses in my house either with a
Yeah,
5-year-old trying to, I've got a meeting to get to at 9 o'clock on the dot and I've got to get her on the school run and then I've got to get through traffic and,
yeah,
all of that stuff. And that's the day that she decides that she doesn't want to wear those tights. She's going to wear, you know,
yeah,
something that's in the wash or and it's yeah, I completely get the frustrations, but as you say, if you can reflect on it, learn from it, it's certainly great and helps you in your professional career as well. But what you mentioned to me when I was we were talking before about the loss of your dog, tell me what kind of role she played in your life. I mean, I lost my two dogs within 4 months of each other about 3 years ago now, and I will still hear a dog barking outside and think that it's my dog in the garden wanting to come back in. So I completely get where losing a pet is just heartbreaking.
yeah. My dog's name was Shera. So believe it or not, everyone outside of my community thinks he was a she. It's actually a male because Shera is a female
Okay.
name, but Shera is actually a Punjabi word for lion. Um,
Okay.
so he had lion-like characteristics because of his color. He was
Right.
like a golden skin. He looked like a baby lion when we saw him for the first
Oh.
time. When he grew into this 52-kiloed American eater that was alive. People used to cross the road when we were
Oh.
walking. I don't know if it was him or me, but yeah, I think it was him.
I
But
bet he was so soft as well, like even though he
he
was so
was
big.
amazing with the kids and everyone. He was amazing. I'm actually not really a dog guy, and it was my younger brother when we used to live together. I think he had been made aware that somebody within a temple, like the Gurdwara, like the Sikh temple, they owned a shop nearby, and I think their dogs had had like 8 or 9 pups, and they were just giving them away.
Oh,
So, him and one of my cousins and somebody else took three from the same family.
wow.
So we had three brothers within the family.
Okay.
And Shera was the one that stuck out the most to my brother and myself. He was coming to us a little bit more. There was quite this instant connection. And I think for the first few years, he was my brother's baby, even though we all
Hmm.
chipped in and done it. And then I got a lot more involved with it. And I think maybe, so he passed away when he was about 11. I think when he was about 5 or 6, I think it was after my brother had moved out, we kept him. He had a bit of a cancer scare. And I remember, and he didn't have cancer. And I remember getting really irritated that I had to pay £1,200 for a scan. But then I felt so relieved, and I actually cried my eyes out when I found out that he didn't have cancer. And I actually
Mm.
drove home thinking, what the hell? Where did that come from? I didn't even know I had these feelings for you. Um, and
Yeah.
yeah, and then from that moment onwards, we just became a bit closer.
Yeah.
Um, and then when yeah, we were just very close, and he was loved by so many people within the family, even the
Mm.
guys that were like my mom's sisters and family members that were scared of dogs. They just all, I don't know, there was something about him. He was the most calm, relaxing dog ever,
Mm.
and he was so loyal. He was just amazing. And then when
Oh.
we had to put him to sleep, and that was probably one of the most difficult moments in my life. Um,
Mm.
it was so difficult because
Yeah.
it was different. There was no training. Nobody explained to me that because the decision's on you to put him to sleep.
Mm.
I'm like, what do you mean the decision's on me? I can't do that. And the vet just kept
Yeah.
saying, you know, like that. And then one of my uncles is an ex-vet, so he tried to explain to me that you need to do what's best for his life. You don't want him to suffer, and this is what he's
Yeah.
going through right now. And I still couldn't grasp it. And then when we came to the decision to do it, some close family, my little cousin sister, and a few of us all got together. And when we took him, I made a special request if we could get a bigger room because a few more of us wanted to attend. They were really good. The vets actually allowed us to do like Sikh prayers with him. We treated him like it was a
Yeah.
family member that had passed
Of
away.
course.
So we
Yeah.
recited our own prayers and done a final prayer for him, and he's missed a lot, but
My two were 13 when they passed away. So 4 months, four
mm,
months apart. One had a heart murmur that basically was stopping her from breathing in the end, and she wasn't getting any better with
yeah,
medication. And she was only a tiny little thing. She, you say do you say 52 kilograms? Yeah, my dog was 4 kilograms.
Okay.
She was a tiny, tiny, tiny little thing. We used to call her Weasley when she was when she was a puppy because she was just so diddy. When they put her to sleep, it was very, very peaceful. She just went in my arms and that was
Yeah.
that. And then she just looked like she'd fallen asleep. Whereas the other one, she had cancer, unfortunately, and she just flopped her head down. And
Oh,
even though I was holding her in the same way as the other dog, it felt more dramatic with her. It didn't feel as peaceful with her, and that still bothers me to this day. That
yeah.
like my first thought was, I'm not ready, bring her back. And I know that sounds really silly, but yeah, it's just heartbreaking. And the fact that it was the same process that I had to go through, but also the outcome was both passed away, obviously, but the way it happened was very different on both dogs.
On
Yeah.
reflection, the way he went was actually really beautiful because when we went in the room, there was about nine of us in the room, and the vet kept saying he doesn't know what's about to happen. Like, rest assured,
Yeah.
there's no stress on him. But he done
Mm.
this thing where we were in this room and he went up to everyone one by one and literally just had a little sniff and a touch of every single person before going back
Yeah.
into the middle of the room and sitting down. And I thought, there's something about this guy, man. There's something
Yeah,
about this
he
guy. I
knew.
don't know what it is, but this guy's more than just a dog. That soul
Yeah.
is from somewhere else. But
Oh, and they
yeah,
always are. They say that you know, they're angels without wings. They love you unconditionally, and they're just incredible. I would love another dog, but bit busy and frantic at the moment to get a puppy.
yeah.
It wouldn't be fair on my my husband really if I left him with a puppy all day. But going back to your professional work, then, can you talk to me a little bit about your role as a trustee for Everything's 13, and as well what it means to you?
Yeah, I've been a trustee for Everything's 13 from 11 years ago.
Hmm.
I kind of wanted to, they started off as a charity and the founder was a guy called Jagraj. He had served in the British Army and had graduated at Oxford University. He had his own recruitment business and he was doing really well and he somewhat decided to go into kind of educating about the faith. And I wanted to go on the course and he's someone that really taught me to think out the box and don't just accept things that are just normal. And I came up with an excuse when I was at Clutton's that I'm really sorry, I'm not going to be able to make it to the course at 6 o'clock because I'm on Oxford Street, Marble Arch, and by the time I get to where it is, I'm never going to do it.
Mm.
And he said, "Oh, okay, where do you work?" He wrote a letter to Clutton's HR team and basically said that Sandeep wants to attend a personal development course, which would be good for his own personal development, and
Hmm.
wrote about how it would improve him in his role day to day. And they said, "Absolutely, we're more than happy for you to leave an hour early, just make up the
Hmm.
time." That was that. And then I went on the course for about 12 Wednesdays and met some really amazing people, some of which I'm still in contact with. And it's really close to my heart because Jagraj actually passed away a few years ago with cancer. But the foundations he set within the charity, it's grown rapidly. Allowed me to meet some really good people, my wife included. um, and
Okay.
that's how we managed to get married as well. And the charity's mission is really simple. It's just to demystify, inspire, and uplift using the wisdom and actions of our gurus and hope being that the wisdom of gurus and my actions inspire other Sikhs and other people from other faiths just to live better lives. And that's it. And
Brilliant.
there's a few different projects that they do. They've got a press association, they've got like a YouTube channel, they do educational courses, they do kids projects, they do books, publishing. There's so many different things they do. And I used to be so much more heavily involved with like weekly meetings, monthly management meetings, but more it's nowadays it's more of a governance role till the rest of the trustees need me, but they all do amazing work on a day-to-day
Yeah.
basis.
Well, it sounds incredible and great that you know, so you met your wife. So
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
you can,
absolutely.
that's what it means to you. You met your
Yeah,
wife
yeah,
there.
yeah.
Great. As we close off then, can you tell me about some personal goals that you have for the next few years, either professionally or personally, whatever you'd like to share?
I think good health, the normal stuff that people want, but generally good health, improve on that. I really want the business, like the property people, to grow. You know, I want us to grow, but while staying true to our values. And I've got quite a long road ahead, but feel very optimistic. I'm really passionate about the industry. I get very defensive when people talk negatively about the industry, but
Me
I think I
too.
get even more irritated when I come across some really, I don't want to swear, some rogue individuals or
Mhm.
personnel, people or businesses that really their actions end up making 95% of the industry that are doing a really good job look really poor. it really bothers me. Like I'm dealing with one client at the moment. I can't even charge them nothing. I'm doing it pro bono. I'm doing it free of charge because I'm
Hmm.
so irritated with how they've been treated by this one person
Wow.
who's managing their site. So I was like, look, I'm just going to deal with it for you guys. With
And
it,
I think it's
months.
important for every managing agent or people who are working for a managing agent. This isn't about making mistakes. Everybody is going to make a mistake along the way. Everybody is going to miss an email or forget to phone somebody back. I think bringing the wrath down on people when you make small mistakes based on what is being portrayed in the press, it's making those little mistakes that everybody makes, and I'm sure the person complaining has made those mistakes in their own professional lives, but it's then so blown out of proportion because it's all, you're all the same and you're all just money grabbing and you're this and you're that and blah 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 because
You're
of
so right.
how it's
Mm,
being portrayed that if you do, I was dealing with somebody the other day and my colleague has done on this particular issue, she has done an incredible job. They had a roof leak. She had scaffolders out there at the weekend. She had the work starting, but because it wasn't within like 30 seconds, not I wouldn't say abuse, but it was basically they told her that they weren't impressed with how long she was taking.
mm,
Now, we're recording this beginning of December to get scaffolding up this time of year when especially with all the storms and everything that we've had, is a very difficult task.
yeah,
And to then get a contractor on site immediately, she's done incredibly well
yeah,
with that. And yet somebody can still turn around and say, I'm not impressed with how long you took,
yeah.
even
And
though
the
she
BBC won't be
communicated along the
interested.
way.
Yeah, and the BBC won't be
Exactly.
interested in like how hard she worked and the impact it's had on her and what she's done. No
Yeah.
one's going to be able to come back and say to her, "Oh, by the way, you could have done this a lot better." They'll critique
Mm,
it, but they won't come up with an alternative solution. And like you say, we all make mistakes. I get it. And one
mm,
of the reasons I think I've been quite successful is because I've never brushed them under the carpet. I've always been very open and transparent. And one of the reasons a lot of my clients over the years have really enjoyed working with me or personnel is because I don't pretend to know it all. Thousands of people that are technically so much better than I am.
yeah.
Like seriously, and I'll never pretend to do something that I can't do. It's
Mm,
simple, but I'll always ensure that I'll be like, sorry, client, but I actually don't know the answer to this, but let me just take it away. Let me get the expert to kind of advise how we deal with this accordingly, and then we'll deal with it. Achieve what you strategic, well, whatever the issue is. We'll
mm.
achieve it together. We'll resolve it. That's it. Just own up to it and figure out how we come up with a solution to rectify it.
Yeah, definitely. And just the last question, really, what piece of advice would you give to your younger self starting off in this industry?
Oh, um, I think in hindsight, I would have loved to have done like a relevant degree. So, but then if I kind of reflect on that a little bit, I probably would say don't chase like other people. Kind of do what's best for yourself, whether it's a university course or whether it's a job opportunity or health decisions. Try not to be influenced by what other people are doing. So, for example, the course I did was because my mates were doing that same course. Like, believe it or not,
Yeah.
that's why I went to that university because my two mates at the time were doing the same course and they got in. On reflection, it's so silly. Like, I wish I had given myself a little bit more respect and love, and actually kind of done a bit more due diligence on the university, on the course, and what I
Mm,
want to do. And I might not have come up with real estate. It could have been forensic teaching or whatever it may be, but it
yeah.
wouldn't just have been influenced by others. So I think I wish I'd been a bit more sort of streetwise, maybe. And yeah, don't chase other people, but do what's best for you.
And it's so young as well, isn't it, in the grand scheme of things, to make those life decisions on a degree.
Yeah,
You're making decisions at 17, 18, 19 in order to define the rest of your life. And
so true.
what did you know at that age, really?
Yeah, yeah,
Obviously,
yeah.
we all thought we knew everything at that age, but in hindsight, 20 years later, I actually knew nothing. So,
It's so true. I don't think I learned much at university, if I'm being honest with you. I think the most I learned was the dissertation that I did because of the report writing and the
mm,
research. I really enjoyed that, maybe the last 9 months of my 4 year degree. But there was a lot of pressure within my family, like you better get a degree, you better go to university. Like in
mm,
hindsight, I think maybe an apprenticeship or something like that would have been amazing for me.
yeah. Well, I did my degree slightly differently. So I I had pneumonia when I was 17, so my A levels got put on hold.
Okay.
And then I did my A levels again. And I was like the old woman in all these 16, 17-year-olds, and I was like 20, I think, when I was doing my A levels. I was like the old granny in comparison. And then I did a HNC, then a HND, and then topped up with a degree whilst working. So I did it a little bit differently. It took me 7 years in total because my dad died in between all of that as well. So yeah, it was a struggle, but I think because I didn't do the traditional route of it, I didn't come out with the debt of, that you would do normally at university and you certainly would do now. But because I was working at the same time, it taught me that discipline and, structure of your day and that sort of thing. But I think I'm certainly going to, you know, when my daughter gets to that point, just be like, as you say, like, what is it that you want to
Yeah.
do? What do you want to achieve? What are you interested in? Doesn't matter what your friends doing, and you'll make new friends. And if you've got a good enough friendship, they'll still be your friends after uni. I didn't go to uni with any of my close friends.
Yeah, it's so
So,
true. I was actually asking my nephew about a year and a half ago. He was in that process going from junior school, primary school to high school. And
mm,
I'm very close to him. I've got a really soft spot for him. He's my nephew and he's in the Midlands. And I said to him, "Oh, what do you want to be when you grow up?" Like, and then he was umming and ahhing, and his dad actually intervened and said, "Think about what's going to make you happy and how can you
mm,
impact and change the world." And I was like,
nice.
wow, okay, wow, that's a bit deep. But then
Mm,
it still stuck with me. Like, it's maybe been 2 years. I can't even remember. It's been a while, but it
mm,
stuck with me. And stuff like that sticks because now I try to kind of implement things like that with my own children.
definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been a really great chat. How can
Thank you.
people find you at the Property People if they wish to do so?
LinkedIn, email address, sandeep@thepropertypeople.co.uk. But otherwise, LinkedIn. Like the PMAs last week, everyone just kept saying, "You're that guy on LinkedIn." Oh gosh, sorry, am I posting a bit too much? But yeah, so
No,
I think
never,
so yeah,
never.
you can find me on LinkedIn or drop me a line.
Great.
Or you can find me at local events.
Yeah, we get about, don't we?
Yeah, we do, we do. Thank you,
Thank
Felicia.
you
Really good at
so
this as well.
much.
You made it very comfortable for me, so thank you.
Oh, no worries. Thank you for saying that. Take
Cool.
care.
Have a lovely day. Take care.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my latest podcast. You can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram. The links are in the show notes. Or you can contact me on jodie@jodiefraser.com. For more content and updates, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on your favourite platforms. Thank you once again for listening. Until next time, take care.